Anyway, let's talk about stuff.
Sure.
James, do you want to ask a question? Do you
Okay,
wanna start
look,
this
so
off?
here's the
What do you
situation,
got?
right? So, as
wanted to eat.
things are going, tensions between the FGC and Smash community seem to be mounting and getting a little bit stronger. There have been times where, guys like Capo have ended up on our Kappa and such. They definitely seem to enjoy talking about Smash now. So
Yeah.
so basically, the situation is this, right?
Yep.
The fighting game community has a culture very much of everybody's a player, all this other stuff, and the Smash community is starting to grow because their popularity is increasing. They're growing a lot more esports, and now their top players are becoming more celebrities. And so they're starting to differentiate themselves from other players in the crowd. So what this has started to go, the road that this is going down now is that some of the top players, they get bombarded by fans at events, and they don't have a lot of time to play. It's hard for them to get practice, and so they've kind of they started talking about VIP rooms just for top players. They've also talked about floating past pools, so that they don't have to play the earlier pool, so they have more time for fan interaction and such. And there's just, like, right now, FGC proper, which I call it, and the Smash community are not seeing eye to eye on this situation. So the FGC's, just from a lot of the FGC standpoint is that, from like my standpoint, for example, is that a player is a player is a player. Doesn't matter who you are, if you pay the same entry fee as anybody else, you get the same advantages as anybody else, right? So once you've entered a tournament, you don't get any special treatment. I don't care. I don't care if you're Justin Wong. I don't care if you're Mango. You get no special treatments, right? But it's starting to change a little bit now, and yeah. So that's the situation here. So mostly, I know that you talked about it on your show a few times, right? And so I just wanted to get the perspective, because obviously last week when we did talk about it, the four of us here, all from the FGC, so we were like, this is silly, why float? But let's tackle these one at a time. So there's the floating, there's the VIP room and such like that, and fan appreciation time and things like that. So let's talk about floating first, because that one seems to be the one that FGC is most against. And I've definitely got a lot of people coming up to me, like from the Smash community, telling me that they think floating is fine, and I just don't see it. I don't understand it. So what's the Smash viewpoint on this?
Okay, so I'll take on that. I think floating in general is seen as like a neutral thing for the most part to negative. And there are very few players that will say like, oh, I'm not going to go to this event if there's no floating as a top player. To be honest, I think it's like Electin and maybe a few others that have been the biggest proponents of it. But like at the end of the day, like Evo doesn't run it, CEO doesn't run it, Combo Breaker doesn't run it. We're totally fine with that. And to be honest, I think a lot of us see, because there are reasons why people want to float, but I think for the most part we want to avoid it if it can be avoided for the most part. And that's a general sentiment. To recap why Shine did it, they wanted to provide an alternate experience, and they actually had, meet and greet autograph sessions where
signing booths.
Each of the players were required to spend at least an hour at the booth. I think they could have optimized their schedule to avoid floating, but I think from the general consensus is that floating doesn't happen. I think at the end of the day, everyone's pretty cool with it.
Okay. Were there any situations there where the floating caused things, or let me say, like, was anybody who was floated not as successful as you would have expected, given the float? Were there any people who underperformed?
So I didn't get floated. I was the cutoff man, and I beat the guy that got floated.
Sick.
So, but I think the statistic, I think Genesis 3 was the first one that really implemented it. I think only one person went 2 and out from floating out of the 64 players. So generally speaking, it did, but I think most people kind of agree, like regardless of results, I think whether it's 99.9% likely to happen that the top player beats the, unseeded player or the non-floated player, that it should still happen. It's the spirit of open brackets where There's no regulation. I think the big issue is, like Mango Armada for sure, they're probably going to make it without losing too many stocks or losing any matches. But what about the cutoff guy? Why does the 3 second place guy get such a significant advantage over 33rd? And that's where kind of the issue becomes more apparent.
So one of the things I think that's really important to note is that from the FGC standpoint of things, I think everybody's sitting there thinking, man, everybody in Smash wants to float. This is garbage. And this is not the situation at all. There's actually discussion there, and there's even people against it. And like you said, you guys are okay even if it doesn't happen, right? So I think that's one of the misconceptions that's going out there right now, is that everybody on the FGC side just thinks that Smash is just going down floating.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one thing that I noticed a lot. If ever there's something that happens in the Smash community, people will make a blanket statement and they say that everybody under the Smash umbrella, they basically share that same sentiment, and we're gonna, tar and feather them because all of them, think about, well, they want to carry out this one idea. But I'll say one thing about the Smash community that I do like is that we're willing to try out new things and change. Where there are certain scenes where people, if they notice that, something works or it's not broke, they won't fix it. We're always willing to try new things out to see if it can possibly make our, tournaments run better, if it can make the experience better for the players or even the fans. Because there are a lot of times where events do happen where we do want to interact with the fans. Like, contrary to popular belief, because K-Brad put out this video that was really popular, which a lot of times I agree with K-Brad, but that video actually, there were a couple things that I wanted to talk about with this video. We actually do love our fans. I am one of the few people that never complain on social media about fans holding me up to go to do commentary or coming to me when I'm in the middle of a casting session and asking for autographs. I get tons of people coming up to me all the time, especially ever since like 2014, where I was featured at E3 on the grand stage, did the whole super fighting robot thing. People far and wide, casuals that probably don't even enter tournaments. Like, I walk in the streets of LA and I'll have people come up to me and ask me for autographs or give me a high five, right? And I never complain about that stuff. To me, it's cool that there are fans that appreciate Smash and are happy to see how far Smash has came. But at the same time, I do understand that there are certain top players who want to have that old feeling of being able to just walk up to a setup and play amongst the crowd, but they can't, because when that happens, a sea of people sometimes stops them from training, right? Which leads into the VIP room subject. First and foremost, with Shine 2016, the back area room was actually a room that was dedicated for staff. And the staff includes like people that were on the production team, TOs, volunteers, if there were esports journalists there that take pictures, they were there behind the scenes too, and players that were going to appear on stream. So the players that were going to appear on stream do not only include the top 48, even though I know people were reading Kage's tweets and probably, saying, oh, so only the top 48 get an opportunity to go back there? Nope. The regular Joe Schmo, or the new hot buzzword that everyone's talking about in the scene, Jim, which I don't like that at all. I just like to refer to everybody as a player.
Did you create Jim?
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. But I think it's better to just refer to everybody as a player, right? Because we all started off as players back in the day, and we don't want to alienate anybody. But so the players.
You can refer to me as Jim.
But your name's not Jim.
Well,
it's James.
No, except to David. Anyway, so.
Yeah, Jimmy.
Oh my gosh. But what I wanted to say was, the people that were in the back were staff and people that were going to appear on stream, which means a guy who was probably seated dead last in the tournament that was going to play maybe the best player there. They had the opportunity to go to the back and warm up, and also bring on one or two training partners to warm them up, get them ready for the match.
It wasn't a VIP area. It was just a warm-up station.
So it was basically, it was basically an area that allowed like people that were going to appear on stream to have the opportunity to train. Yeah. And the thing is, most of the people that usually appear on stream are players that are up there, right?
Yeah. I mean, the same thing happens in fighting game tournaments. Yeah. I mean, ones that you guys have been to as well, where CEO does that stuff. Combo Breaker had a room for staff and for whatever else. And I mean, it's not very common, but it's becoming more common, I would say.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If I could butt in real quick.
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
Yeah, feel free. Sorry.
Yeah, you were here. Yeah.
I just wanted
Basically, this is what happens at every tournament. We set up setups in the back for the players on deck, and then what happened at Shine specifically was someone came through and was like, you know what, we have extra setups. So instead of 2, so 1 for each player to warm up, there were 6 for each game. So that's why it kind of snowballed into a VIP area. But at every single tournament, this kind of happens, where it's at the first day and a half, it's always just the players that are supposed to play. But then as the tournament progresses, some of the top players who want to rest or out of the tournament, they kind of just start hanging out backstage with the stream staff.
Right. Okay.
And it kind of builds up where there's like too many people back there. And then I guess Kage thought it was a VIP area, so he just like tweeted about it, and that's how it started. So.
Okay. I don't have too much to object about in any of that.
I mean, so overall, if you ever see a production area to an event, that's pretty much what it was, plus like a handful of setups.
Yeah.
And the good thing about that was our stream schedule went actually ahead by 10 minutes, so we weren't lagging by any means. So that's like one of the biggest benefits we've had, was that we stuck to the schedule and we weren't lagging and snowballing like 30 minutes behind, an hour behind.
Was it because basically hand warmers were happening off stream basically?
They were really on point about deciding on who was going to be on the stream, and a lot of the times the delays come from them looking. It's like, oh, where did this player go?
Sure.
Oh, this guy went to the bathroom, or like, shoot, like I just lost him. And
Yep.
so it was just a really great way to coordinate everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the final day was they allotted 4 hours for each top 8, and a top 8 lasts usually about 3 most, maybe a little over that. So any downtime or any extra overage, we had plenty of time to catch up.
Go ahead.
So, you said that that the Smash scene is willing to try new things.
Yes.
Like implying that the FGC probably is not. Even if you're not trying to imply that, I think that's true.
Okay.
We definitely have like a set of ideas in terms of how we want things to go, and there's this is how many of us think. I think certainly it's how I think. I am down with new things and with change, but sort of on our terms, I guess.
Yes.
And that's part of why I didn't want to get involved with the major esports organizations like years ago.
Yeah.
Now that's sort of it's not really an issue anymore, but so there's like a set. There are things that I care about that I don't want to see change.
So the base values.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And those are things like that everybody has to play, that nobody should be treated differently.
No one
sort
should
of
have
an
an
egalitarian
advantage.
viewpoint. Yeah, that anybody, and also even that like the individual members are not as important as the scene, including me and including Jimmy over there, and then whoever else. If Jim leaves, if he quits tonight, it's gonna suck. But there's other people who commentate.
I just want to say that you are not replaceable.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how I view myself as well. And all the
I don't
top
know. I think David just recently put out a tweet with a really bad pun in it, so I think David is slowly trying to make me obsolete. So
So these things I think are things that like the FGC doesn't really want to give up on. I'm not saying whether that's a good or bad thing. I just think that is how a lot of us view it. That we just have like a set number of principles that are like too important to give up on. And I also don't want to imply that like Smash doesn't have that stuff, but I'm just saying like I think that's part of where the hostility comes from.
I can see.
And when when certain people in our community think that those things are being challenged, they react in ways that are probably not the best.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because obviously you guys are coming here, and you're like, well, some people don't like it in Smash community, etc., etc. Do you feel like it's just, I'll say certain people, but like Leffen, like who's like louder than most people, and so it kind of sounds more like. Look, I like Leffen a lot, right? Because I like that kind of person in the community. It's like he's like F-champ, right? And I always want those kind of players in the community, but in a large way, he's kind of louder than a lot of other people, and obviously he's very pro floating and pro VIP and all this stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that might be like? Do you feel like there's any sort of within the Smash community to tell Leffen like chill a little bit?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. But I think the heart of Leffen is actually more closely aligned to what the FGC thinks about players more than what people would realize.
Okay,
He wants
okay.
to put on the best show possible, and he wants to compete at the best level possible and say that he gave it his all. Unfortunately, he can't do that when people are like crowding him nonstop.
Yeah. Like to talk about that more at Evo, which he was unfortunately wasn't able to make it.
Right.
I was working on like a salty suite with a company that were really into it. They wanted to get a room with 1,000 chairs, blah blah blah, but they needed the headline act to be Leffen versus Westfalls, and he declined because he was like, I need to focus on the tournament. I don't want to do anything else. Focus on the tournament and win. So, like what was just being said before, he is 100% about the competition side.
Right.
And if he says something that sounds like a little outlandish, it's because he's just trying to focus on that and that only for the weekend.
And to add on to that, so if there wasn't really as much of a celebrity culture and he could just play, he wouldn't see a need to floating or having a lounge where he can unwind and just focus, as opposed to taking selfies between matches where people are like, after he wins game 1 of a set, oh, Leffen, can you take a picture with me? When like he's just trying to concentrate.
Yeah.
And
I mean, to be fair, like I've heard a story like it was last year, 2015, right after Justin got eliminated from Marvel. Like he stepped off the machine and some guy ran up to him for like an autograph or for a photo. And you just lost in Marvel. You're like really salty,
Yeah, it's
and
Evo.
so it definitely happens a lot. So I can
probably
definitely
lost to Game
understand.
Blue River.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be salty too.
Dang. But so here's another question. So with regard to like shoot, I lost my question.
So just to kind of recap, I think
Old
it's kind of going
man
on to boundaries and celebrity culture. Was that the direction you were going?
A little bit, yeah. So like shoot, I totally lost my train of thought here. Thinking about the Justin
Leffen,
thing.
Justin.
Can I say something real quick while
Yes,
you're thinking?
do it, please.
Going back to the floating thing, I do think it's the Smash community's very split on this. It's not a like everybody thinks it's okay, but also, I mean, personally, I am 100% against floating unless it's completely necessary for the tournament. Like, if it just can't be done any other way, or like they were saying before, they're trying to figure out a way to get the top players to have signing sessions or something, but I'm still not really for it, because I think that there's like top 32 is, I mean, I don't know what Shine did, but I think Genesis did top 32, is that correct?
Genesis did top 64.
Yeah, top 64?
Yeah, it was
Like
top 64.
that's too much.
Well, top 64 got into the round of 256.
Oh, okay.
So,
Still,
How many people
Still.
started out?
that's way too many people.
Huge, I know.
It's like 1,500, so it's like winning round 1 pools.
Yeah.
So I think the big thing, and this is where kind of the issue comes in, if I could take a tangent, is that Big House, Genesis, Evo, CEO, they're established brands, so top players are going to come, or a large majority of them. You have a new tournament like Shine, who are, Blur mentioned this, where the TO, as great and nice as they are, aren't going to have the leverage. So if they say, yeah, like I'm not going to go unless like, because I have work on Friday and I'm not going to take off work for your tournament, so either I can come on Saturday and play, or I'm not coming to your event. So just to be clear, Shine did not do that, and I had misclarification. But the point being is that top players do actually have a lot of leverage. Maybe they didn't use it for Shine, but for them to attract the star power they need, they may need to allow for certain privileges. Maybe it's not floating, maybe it's getting their plane tickets or paying for their hotel so that they're more willing to come.
So here's a question though. In terms of, gosh, my brain is just not working right now. I didn't get much sleep last night. I'll just say that much.
I can tell you, fighting game tournaments, for some years there, we're flying people out pretty regularly. I don't think it really happens much anymore in Street Fighter and other games like that, but there were certainly some years where people were getting regular flights and board and all that stuff out of an idea that bringing in more stars, I guess, would be more lucrative.
Writing it down now. Okay.
I'm not sure how much that really worked out. Some of those ones, like Canada Cup, lost money every single year doing that. I don't think it ever paid off for them. And there's some that just died that I never heard from again. Like Ohio, there were a couple. But it might have helped for others. It's just that now almost all of the tournaments in FGC are reasonably established. Like there's a few that are startups still, but it's not very common anymore. So those established ones will probably like get away with it. But I think the only player I've heard of who still asks to be flown out is Daigo. I don't know if anybody else still asks for flights.
I mean, I know some events might still have flying out some people, like small ones, but more
small ones,
not tournaments, but more like convention kind of
certainly conventions. Yeah. And smaller ones.
One thing I wanted to mention too is that unfortunately for us now that a lot of players are part of teams that have sponsors that give them money to be able to support their players, we don't have as many TOs that have to do that anymore. Now a player could just tell their player manager, right, of their team, like, hey, there's a major coming up, and then they'll just get registered and they'll get a flight for that. And even though Tafokints mentioned that a lot of the players do have leverage over the TOs, fortunately for us, a lot of the players aren't that scummy. They don't really abuse it.
Yeah.
Even though some people may actually think, oh, they have this much leverage. I guess that means that a lot of these pro players are really real jerks to the TOs. But surprisingly enough, they're not. They're really cool about it and don't abuse their power as much. If anything, there's just what would you say? I guess we're not going to talk about music.
I mean, I think in general, there's I think maybe this is like kind of where Rick was heading. It's like the good faith clause of like the TO, flies you in, you're not going to be a scumbag and hide in your hotel room. And to be fair, a lot of the players, even if there's a back area they can chill, they're going to go out there for autographs. They're not going to avoid, maybe they need like a 20-minute break where they're not being counted. But like most of the time from what I saw at Shine was that they all went out and fan interacted the majority of the weekend.
Cool. Yeah, so the question that I wanted to ask was, so you guys are saying like, a guy like Mango, I think it was even Tofu said like he was playing a match, and in the middle of the match someone came up and wanted to take a picture with him, like after he lost like game 1 of a set. And do you feel like that's just an unsolvable problem, so that's why it's kind of leading down this path of needing the floats and fan interactions, all this stuff? Or do you think that this is something that, because it's interesting, because in the FGC, for example, even like I've seen situations where like Justin is just sitting at a casual station playing with Noel, or just two people who are like decently well known playing tournaments. K-Brad is sitting there playing against somebody or other, and the FGC players, the spectators there, they all just stand there. They don't like talk. They don't interrupt them. They watch and they just enjoy having fun watching, and they won't go up to them in the middle of like them playing and stuff like that. Do you think that that's something that needs to be talked about and educated amongst the Smash community, or do you think it's kind of the God culture is a little bit too ingrained now that might not be able to happen?
Or maybe is it okay that it's ingrained and that doesn't need to be changed?
Right.
Or either way.
Right.
Well, I noticed that there has been a trend of top players and or personalities posting on social media and even like videos, like video content, trying to educate some of these people about the fact that, hey, if a person's in the middle of the set, going up to them and like tapping their shoulder or bringing their face up to the camera and trying to get a selfie right after they lost or in the middle of a game, sometimes like they need to learn, I guess, tournament etiquette. Is that?
I think it's just. I just think it's just social boundaries.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what I actually wanted to touch on. A lot of the fans of Smash are young, right? So they don't actually get the same social cues that the older crowds would get.
Yeah, I heard when Zero got asked like mid-match for an autograph recently, it was someone very young, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of people didn't talk about. So everyone was like, "What's wrong with blah blah blah?" Like these people are, but it was like literally a child.
I mean, frankly, like in my experience at FGC tournaments where there are Smash events, the age difference doesn't seem that stark. I mean, it seems like it's very similar to how other fighting games are.
Yeah.
I would largely agree with you, but then you look at the lower end of it, and like there might be like a couple hundred, Smash players that are below 14. Not sure how many there are in like Street Fighter.
Not very many. Yeah, it seems just again in my own experience, it seems that most of the people hanging around the Smash scenes are like late teens to mid 20s, the same way that it is for other games. But,
Well, if you go to a tournament where it's just solely Smash in comparison to a tournament where it's FGC and Smash, the FGC/Smash events usually don't pull that many Smash players, right? You'll usually get maybe a lot of the older crowd that has the money to go there, or maybe like the sponsored players. But if there is an event that's like solely Smash Brothers, most of the time you'll see a lot of the younger crowd there. Like I'll even see older people with their parents. And there are times where even FGC tournament organizers will ask me like, how come there aren't that many Smash people that come out to their events? And it's because sometimes they feel
outside of Evo and CEO. Too.
And it's because sometimes they feel like a side event or whatever, right? Regardless, when I go, Tafokints and I, we go to a lot of Smash events, and we'll notice, like, especially with Smash 4, right? That's when you see a lot of the younger guys. Maybe with Melee, the crowd may be older, and again, we wanted to convey, we do love the fans. We engage, we interact with the fans on a regular basis. I have no issues. I never complained. We're just, talking about the reality of the
I
man.
saw you body slam that one fan at Evo. No, I'm just kidding.
Watch it go on our Kappa right now!
I think if you really want to see kind of the real down-to-earth culture, I'm not sure how big Street Fighter local events or FGC events are, but even our locals for Smash, for 4 and Melee, easily get 200 to 250 people in LA.
Right.
And you'll see the West Balls, you'll see S2J, these top players play hours of friendlies with people when asked. And so I think it gets overwhelming at a major where a lot of people want to come. Like at SmashCon, for example, that was a fan experience.
Right. That was almost kind of designed to be a fan experience, right?
And so you would have Mango get literally 100-person line. And that's what it's designed for. But at locals where it's more player to player, it's more natural where it's like, oh my gosh, you're this guy. It's like, oh, hey, do you want to play some friendlies? Yeah, sure. And then we'll play.
Sounds good to me.
And I think that's where you see the more, I guess, regular player-to-player interaction.
But so let's shift the subject a little bit more. We've obviously alluded a little bit to the God culture, and a lot of people, when I talk about this on Twitter, I get a lot of people talking to me. They're always like, "Don't worry, GimR's done it already. It's fine." But we get a lot of people telling, I get a lot of people like, "You guys don't understand. Smash is just different than FGC because we idolize the players more, etc., etc." Do you feel like? I mean, I talked about this before. I actually said that I think the God culture thing is very cool because it generates storylines from event to event, and it gives people stuff to root for. And I think that's actually something missing from the FGC. But at the same time, it does create this idolization, this gap. It's almost like now, like for the way I was explaining it to somebody else, it's like, for example, like you want to get into the NBA, right? There's 30 teams. There's like 13 players on each team, right? Yeah, okay, you want to be one of the top NBA players, good luck, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But fighting games are different because like everybody's playing and everyone can play, but I feel like the more you idolize gods, the more you put them on this pedestal, then it means that you don't believe that you yourself can get there anymore when you put them on this kind of level. And so I guess what I'm leading to is, do you feel like the God culture is something that you guys want to strengthen in the community, or does it feel like something that you guys might want to dial back a little bit?
I'll start. So I think what we did really well is we captured a market that is not going to eat, breathe, and play Melee 24/7. So like we had the hardcore people that want to improve, but we captured a larger audience that followed through the documentary and just love watching the game.
Yes.
Their goal at the end of the day is not to become Mango's equal. They just love watching the game. They love the personalities. And I think it's fine that we've expanded to that point that we have people that aren't really interested in playing video games or playing Smash in particular, but they love watching. And so they're not going to go to Evo and say like, I'm going to practice all year and get to top 8. It's more like, oh, I just want to watch these people that I've been watching on stream all year.
Right.
And so I think the same thing for Street Fighter. I would love for Street Fighter to get to a point where you have the hardcore people that want to grind, but there are also going to be a group of people that work a day job and they're not interested in grinding out and becoming the best, but they love watching.
That is definitely coming around. It's it doesn't seem that big to me, but whenever I say that, I always get a lot of tweets and people on streams and stuff saying that, hey, I'm like that, I'm like that, I'm like that. So it might just not be visible.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, to me at least.
Like, for
L.I.
example,
Joe, baby.
What's that?
I said L.I. Joe. He, I feel like him at Evo kind of like created a huge storyline.
Yeah.
For the scene. I mean, you guys already have storylines and players, but I feel like that was really good.
Yeah, for sure.
And then imagine, like, what was it, 2 million viewers for ESPN?
Something like that, yeah.
What if, like, 10,000 of those people that watched EVO last year were like, you know what, I don't play this game, but I want to be a part of the experience.
Yeah.
And they come, and now you have this large portion of spectators that may not understand etiquette, but they, like, idolize Justin Wong or Takedo or Infiltration.
Right.
I mean, I think it's kind of natural with a scene's growth. So, you know, sometimes I think there's trade-offs, but like I think for the most part it is a good thing because without the fans, without the spectator and the viewership, if we just had our hardcore players, we wouldn't be in stadiums. If there weren't 2 million people interested in ESPN, we wouldn't have gone broadcasting rights for it.
You're
So
totally right.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, having a celebrity type culture, I think, is valuable for business.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, I don't think there's any denying that.
Well, also the players, it helps the players be able to do it full time, which is kind of
Certainly, yeah.
one of the end goals,
Makes
right?
it sustainable.
Yeah, I didn't mean just business for tournaments or whatever, but for the players themselves and for commentators and for streamers and for everybody, people who do stats and whatever it is. Like all that stuff gets opened up. Yeah, it's totally true. But that said, I think that I'm still, while I am cool with it to some degree, I'm not sure that I am as cool with it as maybe some other folks are. I sort of accept it a little bit begrudgingly, with the knowledge that like I'm doing what I'm doing because of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's really important to me to try to maintain the approachability and sort of the equal feel of it to me. I don't want to feel like I'm walking into Evo and that I'm some super special dude. It's cool. I mean, I'm happy to meet people, of course, but in those meetings, I always wanted to feel like, hey, like I've, you know, we can hang out. It's not like I'm in this position and they're like looking up at me. It's not really. That's not really the kind of experience I want, and I wouldn't want that if I were. Especially, I think I would not want that if I were not in my current role. If I were like some dude walking in there, I would super not want to have the feeling that other people were in some elevated position.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like a lot of the common esports. You know, this is another one that I had discussion on social media with somebody. You know, they were like, all the esports are going this path. You know, eventually you have these gods and you know, etc. But you know, a lot of these other ones are very different because you know something like League of Legends or CS:GO, the games take a little bit longer, right? And so you're not gonna have 5,000 man tournaments in a weekend, right? So fighting games, I feel like, are special in that way, and so like that is one of the things that I do try very hard to, you know, I mean, I talk about it a lot, so I do what I can, but to preserve that kind of everybody is just a player kind of atmosphere. You know, I don't want to get to the point where, you know, Mango and Armada and Hungry Box are sitting off in a cordoned off room and no one's allowed back there unless you have special VIP badges and stuff like that. You know, I like the fact that, you know, I've had one of my favorite tweets was at a Canada Cup, and granted this was before FGC started getting even bigger, but it was a Canada Cup and me and Mike Ross are just sitting there and we were just talking. This was before Mike Ross went Hollywood, right? So, you know, we're just sitting there talking. And I saw a tweet that was like, I'm just sitting here behind James Chen and Mike Ross and they're making dumb jokes and everything and this is really funny. And I like that. I like the fact that people have the chance to run into you, or like you're just walking around the Evo floor like, oh my god, you're Justin Log, you know, kind of thing. I like that kind of feeling. So I'm scared to go down that path where we idolize the players too much, because then it might get to that point where, you know, you can't help it, right? Like at some point in time, like without even knowing it, you know, Hungry Box is going to be sitting there and be like, you know, tell this person, go get me my drink, you know, and stuff like that. It could happen, and I am worried about that.
This is one of the things that I was talking about when I said that there are things that I think we don't move very well on, that we're not, you know, that we're hesitant to give up. I really think this is one of those things that definitely for business it would be better if we had celebrity type culture. no doubt.
Oh,
But
I do think there are a few players or people that do have that though in the
yeah,
FGC.
totally. Yeah.
Like I went to Twitch with Mike Ross, and he actually had another employee come up to him and start talking to him while he was trying to work.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was crazy. I was like,
It
"Damn."
definitely happens with Mike. I mean, look, like on this channel, we advertise a statue of Daigo Umehara. Okay, that's going to be showing during the break. So that definitely is the case for some players. You gonna show it now?
Yeah, I'm gonna
there it
show it,
is.
yeah.
It's a 1/4 scale apparently.
There you
Really,
go.
it was 1/4 scale?
That's what it's
huge.
called. I mean, it's pretty tall. It's
Wow,
pretty tall.
okay, wow, that's
So there
crazy.
you go, Daigo Umehara statue.
Yeah, so definitely we have that. But it's, like I said, I would want, I want to limit it. I don't want to have it be huge. I don't want it. It's like I begrudgingly accept the fact that it exists,
Yeah.
but I don't want it to
But
be
here's
a
the
giant
thing: is even
Yeah,
as
that's awesome.
even as admired as Daigo is, he's still wandering around the floor. In fact, there was even a photo of him sitting in the stands at Evo in the cheap seats, just chilling there by himself, and he wasn't like mobbed or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
So, because I mean, one of the things that some people told me is that this is inevitable, that we're gonna get to that point where stars are mobbed, and because it happens in anything, NBA, other esports, etc. And you know, I always bring up the poker example, right? Now, obviously, I've never been to a World Series of poker, so I don't know what it's really like. But whenever they show it on TV and stuff, a lot of the famous pros, the people who are super popular, just walking around playing on the tables, you know, people just stop by, and it doesn't look like it's that kind of situation. So it seems like a culture kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit stubbornly, but like that's what I'm trying to hold on to, you know, in the
Definitely
fighting
stubborn.
community. Yeah.
But, like, what if there was a case where, like, moment 37 happened at Daigo and he went on, like, 3 undefeated runs and it got picked up by mainstream media? And I think there are certain storylines where I think, because back in the day, D1 and I could share that, you know, at an event we had, like, 20 people, and that was considered big.
Sure.
And everybody would play with everybody, and we'd all go to Denny's afterwards and
Been there.
you know, kick it and, you know, have a good time.
Yep.
And, you know, and unfortunately I can't do that at a 200-man multiple.
Yeah.
I want to do my best, but like my resources are limited, my energy is limited, and so I wonder like what are the as growth scales and you know the FGC scales, Smash scales. It's like how do we kind of make the right compromises because you can't hang out and have an intimate conversation with 1,000 people like you could, or with everybody like you could have done like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, dude. Evo 2013, if I'm not mistaken, it's Evo 2013, right?
That got us in.
That got us in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Evo 2013, when I went there, that was the first time I actually like was met with people that just like came at me every second. And again, I had no issue with people talking to me. I just kept telling people thank you,
I hear
took
ya.
pictures, took
Yeah.
autographs. But it shocked the hell out of me. Because that was the first time that
Yeah,
actually
dude.
legit
It's weird.
happened
It's
at
still
an
weird.
event.
It's still
And
weird.
it's
It's still weird.
and it's to the point where there are times where if I do need to go somewhere really quickly, not out of disrespect to any of the fans, but if there's another path I can take just so that I can hurry up and make sure I get to the commentary desk on time to not hold up the broadcast, sometimes I'll have to do that. There are other times too where I'll just walk through the sea of people, and if people do talk to me, I'll tell them I'll get back to you later.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
I have manners. I
Sure.
talk to the
Yeah.
people. We're all human beings, and I can understand if they're fans and they regard me as a celebrity. Then it's totally fine, and I'll never try to get big headed about it either. But it is hard to have that that old school feel that you used to have, where you just go into a tournament, you see a setup, and you sit down and just want to play. I still try to do it anyway. I always tell you could ask GimR. He'll always see me randomly in the thick of it, and I'll have people surrounding me, and I'm like, I still enjoy being around people and playing random people at an event. I'll never
I've
act like
seen
I'm
you
too
do
good to be
Yeah.
around the people. So
I saw you grinding
yeah.
Pokken a couple of times.
Yeah. So just want to let you guys know it's not like our egos are inflated. We still try to bring back that old school feel that we have at events. Not everyone's like me. There might be some who are at events that probably get overwhelmed. Maybe they have a problem with being surrounded by people all the time and having people ask them for many different requests. And because of that, it might make it hard for them to focus on the event. So that's why they probably would feel better if they were in an area where they didn't have to deal with getting bombarded a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing to me is that one of the things that I think that FGC forgets a lot of times is that, this kind of mentality of like everybody is equal kind of thing is a very arcade culture mentality, right?
Mhm.
Because you know what, the thing that I always say is you pay the entry fee, you get treated like anyone else. Just like arcade, you put up a quarter, you're the same as anybody else, right? But Smash came from console, like it didn't have that arcade culture, right? So do you feel like, because I mean someone mentioned in the chat, you know, like we've been talking a lot about Smash and FGC as two different things, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that they are actually two different things? Do you think that they can blend? Do you think they're the same thing?
I mean,
The ultimate question.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think ultimately you can kind of tell, just culturally speaking, who's a Smasher and who's a more of an FGC guy. You look at Evo, you could play a game out of it. Oh, is that guy a Smasher or is that guy an FGC guy? You literally could play it and you'd probably be 95%
I think
right.
we actually did do that, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure everybody's done it.
I do that at any time there's an FGC event when I'm walking around the hotel. Like I'll see like Asian people, I'm like, they're definitely here for the video games. And I'll see like some other and I'm like, they're not here for FGC.
I mean, I think the type of controller is cheating, but you see if people were walking around Evo, you can kind of tell like who's a Smasher and who's not. Needless to say, you know, even though it's not completely homogenous, like I think like we can more than certainly blend. And the way, you know, I think the best analogy I can give is like, oh, it's like Thanksgiving dinner, and you guys have graciously invited us to Evo. And you know, we come with our own ideas. It's like, oh, Grandma didn't make mashed potatoes the way I liked, right? But I don't think there's
I like
a lot.
this analogy.
I don't think there's a lot of. I mean, there are things that people will argue for 3 out of 5, and will realize, hey, like Grandma doesn't have enough time to accommodate 3 out of 5, right?
She can't make all these dishes. Right?
We're not going to tell you guys to make curry in the form of floating or have these top player lounges. Like we can totally deal, and I think at the end of the day, it's like compromises. At the same time, I would hope that the FGC would understand that at a Smash specific event that there might be a few different rules that are different from the FGC, but to comment and look at our cooking and say, well, you guys don't make it the way I like, even though I'm not at this dinner, is what I kind of get a little upset.
That makes sense to me.
Here's the thing, though, and I understand why FGC gets so salty, because we never invite them to our Thanksgiving.
Wait,
That's right, man.
Apex did.
Apex invited them to
I
Thanksgiving.
actually went out to Apex a couple of years.
Yeah.
I was there.
All of our majors need to start doing that. We need to return the favor, because I can understand why
That'd be nice.
CEO and Evo are your biggest events, and we take over, even though we already have 3 other big events. And we're the final game on Saturday and the final game on Sunday besides Street Fighter 5. I can understand why someone would get completely.
Dude, yeah, that's what you
angry
guys
about
do.
that. I would.
You
I think
should
that'd be an interesting idea.
invite Street Fighter 5 over and then give them like 3 out of 5, like all semifinals, and all of a sudden all the Street Fighter players are gonna be like, why don't we do this everywhere else? And then they're gonna start yelling.
I think we've talked about like there's like 2 kind of structures that dictate things. FGC, definitely on the side of bottoms up,
Right.
the bottom ups at the top.
Yeah.
I would say, League of Legends, StarCraft are on the other end of the spectrum where it's top to bottom.
Yeah.
But, we did many things that shine that made the people, the new players, the 0-2 guys have the best experiences of their lives. And I feel like that wasn't talked about, where we say, well, these top player lounges floating, going to kill the event, randoms aren't going to come out, they don't feel equal. But we ran 62 side brackets for the people that went 0-2.
Yeah.
They provided 100 setups for people that were out of the tournament, so they could play friendlies all
That's really
weekend.
nice, for sure.
And
The 0-2 VIP lounge.
I mean, they literally
the LIP lounge.
they literally got to play bracket after bracket the entire
Least
week.
important
Yes, that's the
person,
joke.
Yes.
They got to play bracket after bracket after bracket the whole weekend.
Okay.
And so, we are looking both ways, and we never want to get to the point where top players are in their kind of balcony, looking down at everybody. But we want to see what makes sense for everybody. Skybox. So we are doing ideas, and we do hope, because our business models, and I hate to use the word business models, but our events hinge on the venue fees, and if the random players of all the norm. I don't know how to make it sound
Regular ass people.
The spectators.
The regular players aren't there. We realize that the events will collapse on themselves.
Right, and
so
that's where I think it is different than stuff like CSGO and all these other events. So, but I'm sorry, keep going.
And so we are looking at it in all avenues. And it is, tough because at the end of the day, we don't want to ignore what I call stakeholders. You have the newer players, you have the 0-2 guys, you have mid-level players, you have high-level players, you have the production, you have the event coordinator, and they all have certain needs and things that they need to meet in order to make the event successful to them. And we definitely want to have everybody's voices involved, and that's why we do try new ideas, like the lane shifts for the tournaments. Hopefully, floating. That's what the tournaments were.
Yeah.
They're like literally like sitting goes. If you like poker sitting goes, you just have like 16 people say like, oh, I want to play in a tournament, and then we have them in a tournament.
Gotcha.
And we want to experiment and innovate in many ways possible. I think floating, going back to that taboo topic.
Yeah.
I think most TOs are like, okay, like we want to avoid this if possible. I know Big House, Juggle Rob is very adamantly against it, and his view is that if top players aren't coming, then that's something that's his personal fault, and it's not something. And floating is the easy way out.
Right.
And so we are trying to look for solutions to make everybody happy.
Because here's the thing, right? Like, in regards to floating, it's really interesting because here's my viewpoint, right? Like, I'm thinking, okay, Justin Wong is in this pool, right?
Yeah.
He's probably going to make it out of his pool, right? So, yeah, that may be a little anticlimactic, but it's also great for the people who do get to play Justin Wong, right? Because, like that poker analogy, like, oh my god, I get to play at the same table as Johnny Chan or Daniel Negreanu or something like that, right? So, like, if you actually do get the chance to play against Justin Wong, it's kind of neat, right? But on the flip side, so the argument I was given for floating was that, one, it makes it for more interesting pools because it's less, you don't know who's going to make it out as much, so it's a little more exciting because you just don't want to see Mango body somebody for free, because it's like not fun to watch. And then also then the someone in the chat said the term is pop monsters. The pop monsters, the pop monsters basically, they feel like will get more out of it instead of, oh, I got matched up against Daigo, man, what did I come all the way out here for to just get bodied for free, kind of thing like that. So I can see both sides of it, but
Yeah. Mm.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say I myself am not a fan of floating either, but I just realized when it comes to day one streams, right? A lot of times that's like the worst viewership for the weekend because nobody really wants to watch pools since they usually know who's gonna make it out of that pool.
And the members support that.
Yeah. So because of that, if you have floating, then you can have the top players take part in maybe an exhibition, right? Like you have an X amount of top players versus an X amount of top players. Didn't Genesis have something where they had like a crew battle draft cruise?
Yeah, Genesis, they floated players, but they were in draft crews. And so instead of having random players, you had like Armada versus another PP in matches.
Right. So, I mean, actually, I would love to ask GimR's opinion on this too, because he's obviously a streamer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, from his standpoint, does he feel like viewers are more excited by watching like not the top players beat up on on less strong players, or does it feel like people enjoy watching Mango get to beat up on somebody? Like, which one? Because like from my standpoint, I love it. I love watching top players like beat up on lower players. Like, it sounds mean, but I mean, honestly, it's a cool way to see how you're supposed to handle those kind of situations. So from GimR's standpoint, as a streamer, like, which seems like the audience seems to enjoy more, like even from YouTube vids and stuff like that.
Well, like Tafo said, there's different people that need to get what they want out of the tournament. If the event was completely run based on what was best for stream, in Melee, we always have Mewtwo King's pool every single match of his. Because you pull out a low tier, and you get like 300,000 views on YouTube.
Okay.
And then after that, we'd only have exhibitions or something with the high players. Like, there would be no round one pools on stream or anything like that. Which some events are kind of moving away from, like having round one pools on stream all day. But if everything was completely built around the stream, it would be like each day would end with something really exciting, like finals, some sort of tournament. And then the final day would be top 8 only, or top 32 only on one stream. That's the best way to get high viewership. That's why Genesis has such high viewership on Sunday. That's why Ego has such high viewership on Sunday.
Yeah, I feel the issue with day one pools too. As a commentator, I feel it, in addition to just when I'm watching. it's tougher to commentate those situations, and sometimes there are cool matches in pools. Sometimes there are terrible ones on stream, and we just have to sort of like slog through it, and that definitely sucks. But I guess I would rather solve that by trying to look through the bracket and help bracket runners and whoever the stream runner is pick out whatever the interesting match is at the time. I feel like at any given like minute, there's like an interesting matchup happening somewhere in a big event, and whether that's on stream or not is a different question. So I'd rather just try to make sure that it's on stream more often than it currently is, rather than giving up on that idea.
Yeah, for sure. I know with the newer games, I feel like there should just be absolutely zero floating whatsoever, because everyone's on an even playing. Yeah, there might be already established top fighting game players, but you can't guess that these guys are already going to be, in the upper echelon, which is why Smash 4 doesn't have floating, because the game is still new and they patched it so many times that players who used to be the very best might still be the very best, but they have way more weaknesses in their armor, right?
Yeah.
I.e. zero.
That's actually so you saying that reminded me of one of the questions that I forgot earlier.
Yeah.
Which was, has there been any case where any of the gods, or even someone just under the gods, like let's say the top 32 players, has there ever been a case where they did not make it out of like winner's side of their pool outside of losing to another top 32 player?
Okay, so at Evo, was there 120 pools, give or take? I think so. There was one upset. It was Nintendo versus Kaon. Nintendo's debatably a top 20 level player. And then Kaon, probably a top 100 level player.
Okay.
So in theory, yes, but like if there was seeding down to like 300, then they wouldn't have been in the same pool.
Okay.
So that's the other argument, but there's still a realm of possibility. I would say that it usually doesn't. I would say 99% of the cases for anybody in top 50, they make it out in winners.
Has there ever been like some crazy scare? Like all of a sudden, like, oh my God, Mango's down 0-1 against some random person.
I mean, the closest thing we had, and this was in round 2 pools, where we were trimming down to like the final 128. Smash God, fairly new Marth player, took Armada to last stock, last hit.
Oh really?
Yeah, but those people, both of them, made it out of the round 1 pools and winners, and they played. But that was one of the most exciting moments.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to support my me being against floating, especially in Smash 4, Zero immediately got sent to losers round 1 pools versus a Palutena. One of my favorite.
I watched that.
And that, I love Palutena with all my heart. One of my favorite characters, but to see that happen, that's just way more ammunition for all the people against it. Okay, so she's mid-tier.
Everybody's
Wasn't
laughing.
she butt cheeks, though?
I'm not laughing.
I mean, there's like.
I mean, she does have cheeks. All right, I'm gonna stop. Anyway, we're gonna continue.
Anyway, esports.
I want to get back to that about what I said about pools.
Yeah.
I honestly think Smash 4 round 1 pools should always be streamed because of things like that. The game's so fresh still that you're gonna see a huge upset. But with Melee, it's like, I'm gonna be honest, round 1 pools, it can be pretty. You can just see the skill difference really hard.
It's interesting because like I see some people in the chat, they're like, upsets don't happen in Melee. Like they just don't happen as often,
It rarely happens.
I'm like a top 70 player, and like if you watch me go to Mango's place, it's really depressing. 3 stock, 4 stock, 3 stock, and I'm just like, what do I even do? And like.
So here's another question though. I mean, this has kind of nothing to do with Smash versus FGC. But what is it about Melee that makes it so much harder for people to get? Because like someone was saying, like literally the only person that seems to have been able to break that is Leffen. Like outside of him, like once those 5 gods started winning every event, like nobody's been able to go.
Well, SFAT just started to, but yeah.
SFAT, Plop, kind of.
Okay.
SFAT, Plop.
And Plop, yeah.
So Plop and SFAT, SFAT actually has taken 3 sets off of Mango and actually has a winning record on him. And so is Plop. They are starting to take sets. It's just that the game is so. I mean, imagine somebody trying to get into Super Turbo right now.
Yeah, it's an old game. For sure.
Yeah, that's good illustration right there.
I would have no chance against any of the old school legends. I'm pretty sure, like, even if I played and studied for 3 years, I would get whooped by your Cammy.
It does take a long time.
And whooped by your Vega. I think that's who you play. Like,
I did play.
Like, I would study the game, practice, and just because the game's been out so long, there's just so much noticeable skill gaps. And then when you get to another level, you're like, crap, like, these people know like 10 times more than I do. And then you get to that level and you're like, God, like, I can't even make one mistake or else I'm going to lose the set.
Yeah, it's
And
like if you watch Japanese Third Strike where they never stopped playing that game, that the level that they're at, they were, in 2008, they were already way, way above where anybody was in the US. And now, 8 years later, they've still been playing like that, and it's, you know...
Someone actually in the chat brought up
they're so far ahead.
MVC2 as the proper example for the fighting game proper. Yeah, if you got like the gods in MVC2 playing against somebody who's brand new, like there's just like it would be utter destruction.
Like if I got sent to prison and I would only get out by beating Justin Wong, I would die an old man. I would give me a lifetime to figure out how to beat Justin.
Justin would be a jerk.
I would teach Justin
Just a video game.
Let him out of jail, man. Come on.
we saw what he did to that kid on Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I know, right? You're gonna learn today, Tafo.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. No, I mean the other thing too is I don't think a lot of obviously, me and David and Steve have yelled at people in the chat who are like, Smash is not a fighting game or Smash is a kiddie game. Like, another reason I feel like that Melee is so hard to get into is because it's the most physically execution-heavy fighting game that's out there right now. I think it's the hardest game to learn. I think it's harder to learn than every other fighting game that there is
That's
right now.
Well, I think it's a different level of hard.
Yeah.
I'll chime in first then.
Okay.
Because there's kind of like a wide array of skills you have to learn in Smash before you get into the depth, so that there's that ridiculously high learning curve. But in Street Fighter, your tools are pretty easy to do once you grind a little bit in lab. You can switch characters, but then you have to get into this mental decision-making depth with your opponent where you're interacting more, and you get to that level a lot quicker than in Melee.
Yeah.
So just
And
in
you can
Street
start
I don't think
focusing on your spacing and all that way earlier.
Yeah.
But D1, you were saying?
Yeah, like, since I actually started off in an FGC background, I played Soul Calibur 2 in Tri-State area. I remember one of my first ever, like, major events was Clash 2004. I believe this was at 8 on the Break, hosted by Jaxo. I think it was hosted by Jaxo, I'm not too sure, but I remember seeing his tag there. And I just got, like, 0-2 so fast. But one thing that I remembered, you know, when I played like a whole bunch of FGC titles and went on to Smash, when you juggle a character in FGC games, every character that I juggle, like I don't have to worry about like switching up the combo unless maybe if their size is a bit different, so maybe a move might whiff, right? But like when you play Melee or any Smash game, you have to account for characters' weight, their fall speed. Sometimes they fall faster, so because of that, you have more access to combos, while other characters are way too floaty. So the moment you hit them, you launch them and then try to get a hit, maybe that'll be the only hit you'll get. And they're like floating in the air, you have to follow their drift, and they're back in neutral if they escape, right? And also the battle, you know, landing lag. When you play other fighting games, you get an opportunity to approach, and you don't press a button to cancel out your landing lag. But when you play Melee, you approach, and you also like tap down to fall fast, and then you cancel out, after you input the attack, then you press L to cancel out the landing, or R to cancel out the landing lag. At least in King of Fighters, and Smash, they both have short hopping. So that's similar, but you don't have to like actually fast fall on command and cancel out the landing lag, which is one thing that I really loved about conventional fighters. And honest to goodness, that's one of the reasons why I actually quit Brawl back then, because I really loved Melee, but then when I moved on to Brawl, I enjoyed Brawl, but when Sakurai removed L canceling, I was like, holy crap, I'd rather go back and play games where if I approach, I don't just sit there like this for a second and I get punished over and over again. And I love block stun, which is another thing that they have like across the board in, you know, from Melee and other fighting games. But
and I think like overall to add, like when I play a top 10 level player, I still don't understand what options they have, and I'm still learning. Whereas in Street Fighter, like I played a little bit before, I played Marvel too. Like, I at least knew what the rock, paper, scissors interactions were for many situations. When I play top players, I'm still figuring out, like, wait, you can do that? Oh, I just died for this. And, like, and that's...
I mean, I see a lot of people like they're all like, oh my God, James, you've triggered the chat because I said it's like super execution. The people who don't think Smash Melee is execution heavy, the people who don't think it's execution heavy don't know. Like they just literally have no clue because you can see it when they're playing. It's like there's a reason why Smash players end up with so much carpal tunnel. Because they're just doing this like the entire time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's so much stuff going on in that game. I think that game has more actions per minute than most fighting games do.
Although to be fair, Guilty Gear and other games are pretty technical too.
Yeah, and I love playing Marvel. I myself know that even though UMVC 3 may not be like Marvel 2, when I play UMVC 3, at least my hands don't hurt in comparison to having my hands constricted and playing with a GameCube controller.
Those controllers, I gotta tell you, are not built for long time human usage.
No, dude. When I play on an arcade stick, I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, you know, like playing on
Is
a piano.
anyone gonna start learning that Smash box?
I actually have one in my car.
Do you?
Oh, sick, dude.
No, I should have brought it in.
I'm sorry,
It's
go
like the
ahead.
ultimate melding of the cultures.
I'm telling you,
Physical representation.
I've been playing with it about like 10 to 15 hours. It's really hard to use. But it was really funny. So there's a doctor, Caitlin McGee, who looked at her. She like felt my fat part, and she was like, "Oh, you play Sheik, huh?"
Are you serious?
It's like the muscle?
Yeah.
Oh, sick, man. That's awesome.
Because
Oh
like
my
there's certain
God.
button motions that happen with Sheik in particular, and so she instantly knew when she felt this part that I was a Sheik
That's
man.
impressive.
But Gimmer was about to say something.
And
What were you gonna say, Gimmer?
What's up?
I was gonna say another difference is like the Z-axis in Smash just like makes everything different. It's actually annoying to me, but I kind of wish it didn't exist. But it's just another thing that makes you have to like know little details. And then with like Smash 4, you have like almost 60 characters, and then Rage, so your combos change based on your percentage. It just to me honestly, I think that's a bit much. Like it's 2 years in, and people still don't know like all the combos they can do in setups because it makes a difference. Every little percentage makes a difference in that game. And that's one of the things I really like about games like Street Fighter V, because you get to focus really early on your micro spacing, like just every little pixel to beat out somebody else's button, knowing your spacing on the ground when they jump in, where you have to be to make sure all their buttons whiff.
Street Fighter is always a simple game. It's never been a complex fighting game. That series, I feel like that's part of why it's been successful, is that it's like you look at it and you see the options and it's
Super
those are the
accessible.
options, like that's it. But it always ends up with a lot of strategic depth, which is something I really like about it. But yeah, it's not like executionally difficult or full of options. It's never has been. Other games are full of it, but not SF.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
No, I'm totally cool with that. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, like I said, I think Melee is really execution heavy, but I wouldn't say, like, for example, Smash 4 is more execution heavy than, like, Guilty Gear or something like that. I just think Melee in particular, because of the L canceling, and you have obviously a lot more of the wave dashing and stuff like that, so.
I also wanted to say, like, there is a common misconception that Smash 4 isn't execution heavy, but, you know, one of my roommates, Void, who's, like, one of the
He's in the chat.
Oh, Void?
Oh,
Oh, really? Sick.
I saw his name pop
Yeah,
up.
one of my old roommates in Void, he's like one of the most technical Smash 4 players ever, where he inputs this tight command to basically make a character slide forward and immediately go into their neutral stance. It's like a pivot. They call it the perfect pivot, but in Melee they called it the pivot, like, if I'm not mistaken, since way back. And he incorporates that in his combos, and in order to do that, you'd have to like basically, like, if this is the control stick in neutral, you'd flick it, right? And then it immediately has to like go back into neutral. Like it's ridiculous. So
I'm saying that I'm seeing people discovering like more and more techniques that are making it more execution heavy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It's a one-frame input.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. And there's this other thing where they just mentioned step dashing, which I still can't get down. I don't know if you have it, Gimmer. You have it down yet? So anyway, yeah. Regardless, we're not trying to talk about which game is way more technical than the other, but as far as the combo game is concerned, that's one thing that I always felt differentiated Smash from FGC games, because I'll just sit there and learn my B&Bs like that, right? Then I would just focus on, like GimR said, the micro
Then you play
spacing.
strategy.
Yeah, and it was always good to build up that muscle memory, get those combos down, and I don't have to worry about people somehow finding a way to get out of my combos, right? And when I'm actually amazed now that looking back, that when I play Melee, I could actually react to someone going either to the left or to the right out of my combo, whereas back then, when I looked at people play, I was like, this can't be possible. How are people reacting like that? To, like if you run up to someone and you wave shine with Fox, instead of them sliding forward, they slide backward, and on command, you'll see someone wave dash back on reaction and grab them out of the wave shine, like to follow up or something. It's nuts.
So, enough about games.
Yeah. I was gonna say we should probably.
Yeah. This is what, what do you think are the differences ultimately? Are there any points of incompatibility, do you feel, between the Smash scene and the FGC?
So I think the big thing is Twitter. And I'll elaborate on this. So I'm not saying Smashers are innocent. I mean, I think we've hammered Jabali more than we should have, to be perfectly fair. But like the knee-jerk reactions are probably like, more than like what floating can do to harm a scene. Like I think the massive assumptions that kind of come out of just a knee-jerk response without any context is like kind of one of the biggest contentions, because online, you see that, and the person that's in the crossfire that has never gone to events, like, oh, maybe I should never go to Evo because this sounds unwelcoming, or maybe I should go to a Smash event because they do this, or they poop in CEO pools or something. I don't know. And at the end of the day, like when you go to person, I don't know who did it, but anyway.
Did it happen? Oh yeah,
it did.
It did.
We're not talking about fighting game pools. We're talking about the swimming pool.
Somebody pooped in the pool.
Someone.
And Jabali confirmed that he didn't know who it was. So it wasn't not. Maybe it was a Smasher. Maybe it wasn't.
You never know.
Maybe it wasn't even anybody who attended CEO, because they do have.
Could have been just some regular person.
Yeah. Anyway, back to you.
But like the thing is like I took K-Brad to work and we had dinner and we had a great time. And like. You guys hang out with us, and my experiences at every FGC event has been phenomenal, and I'm not sure if for example, Smashers would feel that they would get an A+ experience out of Evo if they just saw what was seen online. I know our Kappa is not representative of the FGC, but if that's what people see, they're naive.
Right, I get it. Yeah, it's the public perception.
And
well, honestly, it's like from my own experience, I've been in the FGC. I'm an 09er. Basically, and I know a lot of the top players. I'm cool with a lot of them, even like mid-level, lower. It doesn't matter. I'm cool with a lot of people in the FGC. I think a lot of the hate comes from outside the FGC, people that don't actually go to tournaments, because like there's so many events with FGC and Smash there, and so many friends from both communities that I know that someone like K-Brad would never be one of the people secretly saying, "Oh, I hate Smash," or anything like that. It's got to be the people on the outside. Same on the Smash side. That like just says, "Oh, we don't like FGC," blah blah blah. I honestly think, and I also think it's really stupid that our communities quarrel, especially since we're the only two communities that are this much like each other with the whole one-on-one. Fighting game aspect, even though Smash isn't exactly the same. And we're at a lot of events together, and compared to any of the other esports, we're not even the big ones, we're not even close to them.
Yeah.
So it's just really weird that we're bickering among ourselves when just we're not hot shit, so neither community is.
I agree with that. I still have a couple of friends who think that Smash is dumb. In fact, a couple of my best fighting game friends feel that way. But for the most part, I think in general that's either gone away or certainly in any case, it's much less prevalent than it was most of a decade ago.
And I think honestly, I would hope that we're not forcing people into liking Smash if they don't like the gameplay or the game. I don't think anyone's
I don't like all of the games that show up at tournaments. So there's some times when I think a game is stupid. Whatever. A lot of other people like it, so it should be there. Even if I don't like it, who cares? Yeah.
But I think even yesterday's Twitter discussion, VIP room got conflated with backstage prep room, and I think it was it's just like the medium of Twitter where you only get 140 characters. So if Kage says one thing and then it kind of runs in circles, it's well, what's the context of this? And that's the unfortunate thing that you get when you have Twitter as your main source of news.
Yeah, I mean that's always concerning too, especially when like Leffen, when he has like 7 million followers, right?
Sure.
But I mean, obviously, like you said, I mean that was one of the things I said very early on, where it was like, oh, okay, so like the Smash scene isn't in favor of floating, like it's still something that's being talked about, and you're just trying it out and stuff, and yeah, there's definitely this weird perception that it seems like from the FGC proper, like, oh, all of Smash, they want to do this, they're stupid, it's like, no, they're thinking about it, you guys are thinking about it, you guys are trying it, you guys are testing it out, and so, yeah, for sure, I feel like social media is social media is just that way in general now, everything is
I mean, at the same time, as we were just saying, the idea that there's a monolith of FGC that doesn't like Smash is also obviously not accurate. A lot of players like it, or have played both games, or came from one side and then went to the other thing. I guess you did FGC to Smash, but I know plenty of people who did the opposite. I mean, it's...
I like hop back and forth. But...
Yeah, I know. I know you played Marvel.
Yeah, I played Marvel. Right after Brawl, I went to Blau's Blue, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, me and D1 both actually play a lot of Marvel and Street Fighter. I guess a lot of people don't know that, but
yeah,
games are fun, man.
I really like anime.
I mean, look, I
and Namco fighters.
I played Melee with my brothers a lot. Not in tournament, but we would beat his friends who did play in tournament.
Yeah.
We're probably not very good, but like not awful.
I mean,
and I did play Brawl in tournament for a while.
I will say, like,
did not go that
in
well.
my lifetime, like maybe top 5 games that I've ever spent hours total on, Melee is probably one of the top 5 for me. Now, granted, I
Might
played
be for me too.
I played free for
Top 10
all
for sure.
timer with items. It was 4 players. We were just chilling or whatever. But I love the game so much. So just like GimR said, like games are fun.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
right.
like
Well, okay, I guess we're close to wrapping this section up, but this idea of Smash and FGC as being separate, I guess is something I want to probe on a little bit. I would not want to extend the tent of FGC unless all the people involved wanted to be part of it. I've always thought of Smash as a fighting game myself, and so when people talked about there being Smash and then the FGC, and I noticed Smash players said the same thing, that was kind of caught me off guard for a while, because it just felt like to me that was a fighting game, and I didn't really get it. But do you would you guys want to be part of the FGC under that banner in the same way that there's like NRS and SF and anime and whatever else, Smash, or would you rather just not work together, but not be your own thing?
I mean, I have more than enough fun hanging out at FGC events. I don't see why it should be removed.
No, I'm not saying that it should be removed. I'm just asking about how you think of yourselves or of your scene.
If we're under the umbrella of FGC.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
For a long time, I did not consider fighting games, FGC, as being esports. All right, I gave up that ghost. We lost that battle, but I didn't for a long time. So now I'm like, okay, FGC, we're under the broad tent of an esport. Fine, here's FGC, into this and there's whatever, Dota. Should it also be that Smash is underneath that tent? Or is it its own tent?
I mean, what is that? I don't even know.
It's just it's a perception issue.
If
That's all.
we're being 100% honest, they're separate communities.
That's fine, I'm just wondering what you
There's
think
different
about it.
community leaders on each side.
Yeah.
But you can also say that about Smash 4 and Melee to an extent. There's sub-communities.
yeah.
So I
sure.
do think Smash could be a sub-community to the overall FGC, but I think that we kind of need to, honestly, like I said before, I think we need to start including Street Fighter V and other fighting games into our major events if we
That'd be
really
cool.
want to be considered part of that umbrella.
And frankly,
You don't need to be. It's just a question of what you want to do.
I mean, we kind of got to pull our weight if we're considered that, right? Because every big FGC major has Smash, but we don't do the same for you guys. So
Okay.
We would like to invite you guys to our Thanksgiving.
I would love to come.
well,
see
only
your-
if you
your-
cook the mashed potatoes just right. No,
Yeah.
But I mean, let's
Yeah,
just put it this way. Even all the games,
Tofurkey only, please.
even all the games under the FGC umbrella, right? I can't speak out on NRS. If I'm like, NRS should do this, people would be like, who the hell are
Yeah,
you,
for sure,
right?
yeah.
So they wouldn't listen to me either. So
There's definitely subgenre exclusivity for
Yeah.
sure.
So I mean, I feel like even though Smash has different leaders than FGC proper, but I even think FGC proper has different leaders within itself as well.
Yeah.
So so I do feel like I even said it when we talked about it last week, or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember the last time we talked about it. I would love to see them work together because I think we could help each other a lot. I think we could because look, the Capcom side of things with this Evo and this Capcom Pro Tour and getting on ESPN definitely helps the fighting game community as a whole, but then the Melee popularity and just like the Smash documentary and all this other stuff like that can help the FGC proper as well. There's different sides with it. The hardest thing for Smash right now, honestly, is just no direct Nintendo support. Like if you guys had a Nintendo Cup, I think it would just be all over at this point. So.
But as far as the FGC like community leaders and the Smash community leaders, I don't know if you guys noticed, but like me and Rick, we've been going back and forth for the past week, just talking about a bunch of ideas. And after Rick hit me up via DM, and he was like, it'd be great if we could just have like a lot of the leaders of different communities come together and discuss ways to better our communities and see if we could all lead. See eye to eye, which is
nice.
Which is a pretty awesome thing. So we're trying to work towards that direction. It's just tough because a lot of the fans and spectators, they tend to perpetuate whatever negativity you see on social media over and over again, and you sometimes even see it on Twitch chat, right? While all of us are trying our best to be great, influencers for our scenes, others they still try their best to have fun and troll. Some of us get it, it's a joke, but others think, oh yeah, down with whatever community this is, and then they'll just bring their torch and just like basically try to belittle them and bring them down. But as far as like FGC and Smash being under the same umbrella, it's hard to say. I mean, at Twitch, right? I'm part of the partnerships team, partnerships and community development, and there's an FGC guy who's Z, and then there's a Smash guy who's me. And for like esports, they have like Mike Ross, who's FGC, and then there's like Blur, who does all the esports stuff at Twitch for Smash. So I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I always saw us under the FGC umbrella, but then there are times where a lot of people try to make me feel like I wasn't. Between like I'd say 2009 and sometimes till now, some people kind of make me feel like, yeah, you're not part of us. Get out. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, we can sustain ourselves. We already have a bunch of other sub communities underneath. So if they don't want us to be a part of the FGC, I get it. But if there are people like you guys who are like super welcoming and want us to work together and come to agreement on different subjects, fine. I'm open to having discussions with you guys. And thanks for the CRT yesterday, by the way. It's funny because while the drama was happening, I went over Ultra David's place and we just got a CRT. We're like, everyone's at war, burning each other's houses down. I'm like, hey, thanks, man. Hey, no problem. We should get dinner sometime. Cool. And
So I mean, to sum it up, I think it's more than mutually beneficial on all ends.
I think so too.
I think it's silly if there's a fragmentation.
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to be in a position that larger esports was with the FGC, where they all felt like, you guys are esports, like you are under our umbrella, and I was always like, no man, we're totally separate. And they're like, no, you are. I don't want to force anything. Sort of like
dude, trust me, like when I was thinking about it, because I was like, man, Smash is dumb, they shouldn't be floating, they shouldn't be, and then I was like, this is kind of like
what you hate.
This is like the continuation rule. Like when MLG was like, you guys have to do the continuation rule. I'm like, you guys can't control us, blah, And I was like, wow, I'm doing the exact same thing. And so that's kind of when I started backing off a little bit on that and started to try to understand the Smashing's viewpoint, So, yeah.
Alrighty, anything else to say?
Well, to wrap things up, if you guys are now just joining us, as far as the whole VIP room discussion with Shine 2016, it was a back area that had a bunch of staff members, including people that were going to be on stream, which includes not only top players, but also...
It wasn't a VIP section.
Yeah,
it just wasn't.
People called it a VIP section, but it was basically like a prep area for people to go up on stream, and we had a bunch of setups. And I guess since we were away from everybody else, well, for the most part, like whoever was working, some people were led to believe it was a VIP.
I mean, I think I got a free water bottle while I was back there.
I mean, you commentated, you casted, same did I. Yeah, so we got. Oh, you get water? I worked at FGC events.
Yeah, of course we do.
Okay, I was about to say. all right. And we get food sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Definitely a some.
That's a some. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that's it.
Okay, cool. So
Sweet.
we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll just talk about some of the events that took place over the weekend, including Smash events. Now we can actually have someone talk about them,
discussion about it.
instead of us just being like, these happen.
All right.
So okay, be right back, guys.